What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 42 of Nintendo Noise, Flip Screen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And Mr. Chuy Plays.
Hey, Arnold.
Wow.
What's up?
What's going on? Chuy, I like for the audio listeners, Chuy's got a primo vintage Nickelodeon shirt on right now, so
Got everybody on it. It's got everybody.
everyone's here. Everyone, you know?
It's so good.
It's basically the lineup to
Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon Smash.
Missing a couple of the later era shows though, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't got
SpongeBob
Avatar
on
on there. Is SpongeBob on there? I don't think so. Is he?
You might not be.
No, he's
No,
not.
it's like the
Nope.
Gen 1 Nicktoons. It's like
Yeah,
we got Thornberries,
classics.
we got
Yeah.
Rugrats, we got Our Real Monsters, Cat Dog. Quite a lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a lineup. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Nintendo, surprisingly enough. The other, the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl clone, right? Smash Brothers. That's what we got on our side of the fence. You know, it's okay, right? You know, maybe not as good as the original, but nice, fun little indie game from Nintendo, right? I think we can all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
But we are here to talk about this week is a bunch of other stuff. Chewy's got some first strike impressions. We're going to talk a little bit about Mario Strikers First Strike. We're going to talk about the story behind the currently unannounced 1-2 Switch sequel that broke earlier today. And then Nintendo is going to the movies. Nintendo has announced a brand new company called, or actually not even announced, it's been discovered, I should say, that they have a new subsidiary called Nintendo Studios, which has been spotted in some copyright listings for the Super Mario Brothers animated movie. So we're going to talk about that and speculate wildly about the future of Nintendo on both the big and small screens. But before that, let me remind you that this episode of Nintendo Noise is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of June. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Asobi, Mary Berry, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. Y'all are the realest of the real, and we appreciate your support of this fine program. Speaking of ways to show your support, you can head over to that there Patreon, get some awesome perks and goodies, including early access to this and the Flip Screen Games podcast, exclusive access to our Patreon podcast, One More Thing, and a bunch of other cool stuff. So if you want to show your support, you want to go above and beyond to help keep these mics on, maybe get your name right on the air, all that kind of good stuff, head over there. But if you don't have any money to toss our way, you can head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find links on all the ways you can get involved in the community for free. Come join our Discord, right into the show, questions@flipscreen.games. However you choose to get involved, we're glad to have you here, and thank you for joining us. So, let's kick things off with what we're playing. Chewy, you got to check out the, what are they calling it?
I think it's called like the first kick.
First
right?
kick, whatever. Mario
Yeah.
Strikers is right around the corner. We're days from this thing. They did the Splatoon thing where you get to play it a little bit early for like 24 hours. A lot of folks have some early impressions of the game, Chewy being one of them. Before I get into any of my questions about the game, just initial impressions. How you feeling about it? How much time do you get to spend with it? Where are we at right now?
So I only got to play one of the sessions over the weekend. They did that weird thing again where it was like, here are 6 1-hour portions of time where you can possibly play. 2 of them were at like 4 in the morning for me, so I was like, no, not happening. The others were just kind of during times when I had stuff going on. I was with friends. I was attending a wedding, so didn't do those. But one of them did fall in like the afternoon time, and I was like, sweet, this is the one I can play. This is one I can try out. So I played probably about 45 minutes of it because I got in like a little late, and I played with a friend. So it lets you like matchmake freely with like another person that you knew who was on your friends list and everything. So that was cool. And I was lost. I mean, I did like, there's a really if you did download it, you can do like the whole tutorial stuff and learn at least before you play or after you play, whichever. You learn all the buttons and things like that. I did that basically last weekend when the app first went live, and that was actually like it's a pretty long tutorial, and it was to the point where I was like, this is like really long, and I don't really want to learn this as much. Like, just let me play. So, tutorial's kind of long. I think it's worth doing though to learn some of the stuff because it is kind of like there's a lot going on at any given time, and I think the biggest thing I struggled with while actually playing was just like being lost as far as like who I was at
I've
any given
I've
time.
heard that's a big
I've
problem.
I've seen a few complaints about that. There's just too much going on screen. It's really difficult to keep track of who you're playing and what's actually going on, which,
Hmm.
if everyone's saying it, kind of sounds like there's a problem.
Yeah, and I can tell you it's specifically the fact that like you play with two people, at least like when I did, I was playing with like one other person on my team, but you each choose like a couple characters. But it's not like you're limited to switching back and forth between those characters. It's more like you all can switch between those four characters, and that's where like you start to get confused, and then it assigns you random numbers at any given time. Like I think I was at 7 at one point. I was like, why am I 7 if there's like four people playing? Why am I number 7? Like why
Yeah,
is
that's
that
super
attributed
weird.
to me? And I'm like, it just change it so it's like your username, your little screen name. It would be so much easier to follow that way. And I don't know, at one point purple and no, black and pink are very different colors, right? Like you should be able to tell pretty easily who is who.
Yeah.
Mm.
But as soon I was playing in that color combo,
Ah.
I think we were black and the other team was pink or so. But we both had Donkey Kong, we both had I think Peach on our
I really
team,
feel
and
like
I
that
could
shouldn't be
not.
possible. Like they should fake it. So if the other team picks Peach, like they do on Mario Party, right? If
Yeah,
someone else picks that character when they're playing online, they just fake it so they show you a different one. Because I presume the characters all play the same. So why does it really matter which one you're
Don't
just
they?
playing on the
Do they have
screen?
stats?
they have stats, yeah.
That's why
So
then.
they
Right.
do
Okay.
have
So it
like
is an issue
different
then.
stats, and depending on who you pick, and I don't know how much that will shift with the game as it comes out because you start to get gear and you can edit people's stats a little bit more.
Okay.
But yeah, they do have stats, so I imagine they don't do it just because it's like, oh, people who want to get real competitive, they want to know kind of what they're up against with certain characters. If it, they want it to be deeper than it is. It's Mario Strikers. Just let it be fun and hilarious. But when I did know what was going on, I was very happy with it. I was like, this is pretty cool.
How did you feel about the online experience? Like, because it is like a game that seems like you're primarily playing it online, or at
Hmm.
least like with what they let you test. Like, did you find the servers were simple? Like, was it more of like a Mario Party kind of thing, where it's like it felt like online in a game should feel like, or does it feel like online in a Nintendo game?
Yeah, from my end, I didn't notice anything weird with it. Like it ran pretty smoothly. I connected with my friend pretty easily. Outside of like, I think initially he made a room and it wasn't popping up for me, so he just like remade it, and then I was like, oh, okay, now I see it. Outside of that, like I didn't really see any issues with it. And the only time it was confusing was literally just when we were all jumbled up and not knowing what characters we were. So there's a lot of moments like that.
Okay, I mean that's good at least, I guess. So with that, where are you at with it now? Like knowing that it has this problem of like feeling kind of messy and like maybe tough to follow. Um,
Mhm.
did that hamper your enjoyment of it? Is that something that you feel like is going to dissuade you from wanting to pick it up?
I think where I am with it is like I had a lot of fun with it and I thought it was cool. I've been excited for the game and everything. And I almost feel like this shouldn't be an issue that's too hard to fix. I really think like if I could just see my username instead of just like some random number, because
Well, even if it was just
That's
like a
most
big
confusing me.
arrow, surely that would help, right? Just like
Yeah,
this is
just
you.
something to easily indicate like who you are
Or
at some
outline
point.
them, or glow, or something like there's a solution to it, and I'm sure if a lot of people have been complaining about it, that's the whole point of these like initial test runs, right? Is to figure
Yeah.
out some of those teething problems.
Yeah, but I feel like at this point the game's done. Like I feel like these tests are usually more just to like do stress test on the servers. So like it's not to say
Hmm.
that they can't.
I never know what they're stress testing because, like, seriously, isn't Splatoon a stress test enough on your servers? Like, you must know that they work. It's the same
Yeah.
infrastructure, presumably, behind the scenes.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak to that honestly, but
Yeah.
I worry. Like it could be a thing that they patch it later, but like I feel like at launch, like this is probably still going to be a problem. And I
Yeah.
don't know,
Hmm.
man. Like I went from being really excited about this game to hearing, oh, it's really hard to follow what's going on, and then Chewy being like, oh, like there's this really long tutorial because there's like a million mechanics. I'm like, ooh. I don't
Hmm.
know, man. Like this feels like it's fallen more on that Mario Tennis Aces side of things,
Yeah.
and
And see, like,
I'm not gonna buy it if that's the case. Like if the reviews are gonna come out and everyone's like, oh, it's busy and hard to follow. It's okay. It's a 7. It's an 8. I don't know, man. I don't think I need that.
and it's funny you bring up aces too, because like, one solution is like add more characters. That way there's a lot more variety, a lot less overlap between what people pick. But even aces was like, when you get these characters with different stats and abilities and stuff, they're
There's
all
gonna
like,
be
oh,
characters
just
that are
play
the
Bowser
best.
Jr.
Yeah,
That's it. Like that's the meta. That's the best character to play. So all of these teams are probably going to have the same four composition after some months where it's like, yep, these are the ones you use if you want to win. So
yeah. I don't know.
I don't know if that'll fix it, but definitely like just put an arrow, a very clear arrow above what character you are, because right now it's just not clear enough.
I think I'm gonna hold out and I'm gonna see what you think. If you're still planning on buying it at launch, like I'll take your word on it. Like if this is resolved and people are happy, then I'm more than happy to jump on this bandwagon. I was really excited for
Hmm.
this game, but this is
I'd
one of
say
the early conversation is really giving me some pause.
yeah, I'd say the question I have right now is like, how is the online going to be? Is it 4 versus 4? Because I think the confusion really lies that like right now, the experience I got was two versus two, but you each had four characters to swap around with, right? And the fact that like there's no limit to that, like I pick two characters, I'm not just swapping between those two characters, like I'm swapping between all four of our pool, and that's like that further enhances the confusion on the field because you're like, oh, why am I not Donkey Kong if I pick Donkey Kong? And I'm now their Luigi. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I don't love that anyway, right? Like, because if I pick two characters, it's because I know those characters and I want to play as them. So, like, if my
yeah,
partner picks two characters I don't like, I don't know, it just
how's it gonna work?
yeah,
Yeah.
that seems screwy. Like, that just seems like a bad idea. Like, why
So
not? Why not just have it be I play the two characters I pick, Chewie plays the two characters he picks, and we both have a color, right? Like,
mhm.
if our team's black and pink, you're black on pink, right? Like
Oh
something.
yeah. You know what though? Like the style of it is still so awesome. Like they have different jersey colors you can pick for your teams and stuff. It lets you like pick your
I
arena and
want
that
to
sort
like
of
this
thing.
so bad. I really
It
want to like this
There's
game.
so much cool about it. Looking at every single time, I think it just became the norm online where it was like, oh yeah, if you score, you're watching that scoring animation because it's great. It's just such a great little animation that plays for every character. They get their unique one, and then everybody's like, yeah, we don't need to see the replay beyond that. But just the fact that they show that animation
Yeah.
first, and then everybody's like, all right, then click A so we can get back to the game. They knew where the style was. They knew where the excitement was. So I'm happy they at least aligned that in the right order.
Ah, man. I really hope this game comes together. I really, really,
Yeah,
I want this game.
I feel like it's an easy fix. I hope they like can patch it in and make it because there is a lot that I liked about it when I knew what was going on.
Do you feel like that's maybe like just being new to the game as
It
part
could
of
be
the
that too,
confusion
yeah.
as well. Like you're not sure what's going on because it's fresh, it's new. Because I remember that overwhelming feeling the first time I played Pokemon Unite. I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what is
Yeah.
these like different rows and like the bit in the middle? Like, what's going on?
I
And
Mhm.
just
you do pick it up.
you're right, but like, and maybe this is me having an unfair bias when it comes to sports games. I don't feel like sports games should be that way, right? Like, I know the rules of soccer, right? In like a broad way, in terms of like, there's two goals and there's goalies and you got to
You
kick
know
the
the
ball in,
objective.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's all you should have to know to play an art like a video game version of a sport, especially if is like a Mario sports title. That should be more arcadey, more like, I don't want it to be like NBA 2K where it's like, all right, better hunker down and play 4 hours of tutorials if I want to learn how to play this game. Like, that's not fun. Like, that's not the vibe. And more, that's what sports games have become. And I was hoping that Mario would be an alternative to that. And it worries me. That sounds like Aces, because Aces was like that, where it's like, okay, like, here's how you do an overhand. Here's how you do a super overhand. Here's the bat. And it's like, I want to press A and hit the ball, right? Like, that's about the extent of what I want to do, you know?
Or
Mhm.
maybe I want a thing to flash on the screen, like a prompt to when I can do like a super smash on the ball or whatever, and like make sure it hits in the net and
Something,
like charge
you
it
know?
in.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like it could be just like being so new to it and having so much to follow right from the get-go. But just the fact that like at one point I'm looking at my character and I'm like, why am I number 7 if there's 4 people playing? Like, why is the indicator above my character the number 7? And
What if you can pick that in the full game? Like, can you always be jersey number 7?
I
Can
don't
you
know.
like?
If that's the
Is
case,
that
that makes a big difference. But
Hmm.
I don't know. That's a big if.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to follow, but hopefully, it gets easier and they address it in some way because
Fingers crossed,
man,
man.
seeing those animations is just so much fun. They're hilarious. Little
how
Yoshi sticking
often?
out his
How long
booty.
do you think? Like, how long do you think that has longevity though? Like, did you find the moment-to-moment gameplay aside from the issues with being able to see what was going on? Did you think it was enough to keep you captivated for a long period of time? Because that was my problem with Mario Aces. It was
Hmm.
like I played a few matches and I was like, yeah, I've got a good feel of this. I'm kind of done with it. It didn't really compel me, and like the story mode wasn't particularly interesting.
I think I have a little group who's already planning to do kind of like an online league thing. So I think that'll definitely help me out at least with like sticking to it and playing more. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it has quite the arcadey feel that keeps people like, oh, let me just play one more.
All right, I'm out. I don't know, man. It sounds
But
bad.
But I will say maybe that would change if I played more like
Yeah.
on my own.
I don't
On
know.
my own. Just because like the confusion with 2 people on there was a little too much. Whereas
Sure.
like I think when I went through the tutorial parts and did it on my own, I was like, oh cool, I can kind of set these things up and I'm not ever at any point in single player, like I was not confused about what team I was on. I was just like, oh cool. Whoever I
Okay.
pass it to, it just automatically makes me that player, that
Okay.
character. So I'd say right now the single player is more like that than like multiplayer.
I guess we'll have to see like what the single player options look like, because if there's a robust amount of stuff to do in single player, maybe that's the differentiator. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Jury's out on this one for me. But we'll talk about it more at launch when Chewy's able to dig in a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
So let's jump into our next story. This one was making the rounds earlier today, as of this recording, and this comes from Imran Khan over at Fanbyte. And go check out the article. Give him a click. We'll have a link down below. It's called "The Wild Story Behind Nintendo's Unannounced 1-2 Switch Sequel." it's a very interesting story, and I would like to summarize it enough that we can talk about it, but I definitely recommend you go give it a click, go give it a read. It's a good report. So there is essentially a sequel to 1-2 Switch, which, if you don't remember the game for some reason, was one of the two launch titles alongside Nintendo Switch, of course, the other being Breath of the Wild. And for what it took to develop, the game was a pretty big success, despite not necessarily being a critical one. It sold around 3.45 million copies, which motivated Nintendo to start work on a sequel, which, at least at some point, according to Imran's article, was being operated under the name Everybody's 1-2 Switch. And it's just a very interesting story. There's a lot of weird details, and where it's landed feels pretty unique for a Nintendo product. So, while they were developing this sequel, the big problem they were trying to answer was, like, what does a sequel to 1-2 Switch look like, right? And, like, obviously, making more minigames is a clear option. But they said that they really wanted to do something different because they didn't want to have, they didn't want to make a sequel that essentially just made the first game obsolete, right? And, like, just led to that game no longer selling ever again. So they wanted to really try to develop something a little bit differently, and they took a lot of inspiration from the Jackbox Party Pack series, which, you know, if you're not familiar, they're basically like these little groups of mini games, and everybody logs in on their phone, and, you know, like, there's a lot of games that you've probably heard of, like Quiplash, and, you know, some of those other games where it's like Drawful, yeah, and they're like, a lot of them are word games. Some of them are like you draw things. Some of them, you know, like have like a more like social element to them, like things like that. But they're like fun little party games, and they wanted to kind of chase that framework in a way. So rather than having it be like the original, where you would just have two players each holding one Joy-Con, going one-to-one, head-to-head, the plan was to have smartphones allow people to have lobbies of as big as 100 players. And that's like where the naming convention came from, with like Everybody's. So this was being worked on by Nintendo's EPD Group 4, so like one of the, you know, kind of one of the prime studios in Nintendo's development arm. And they worked on a bunch of different mini games, and they came up with this kind of framing device to ape the Jackbox thing, where there's a host who's a horse, and it's like a man. It looks like a man in a rubber horse mask, allegedly, and his name is Horse, because it sounded like it sounds like host in most other languages. So they're like, horse, host. Yeah, that makes sense. Good stuff. Which, weird, but okay. And there's like a bunch of different things that like make you get up and move around in the environment. Like there's like a musical chairs game, there's like a bingo game, there's like a spin the bottle game where you have to like give a compliment to the person that it lands on, and just like a bunch of like random things like that. And apparently go ahead, Steve.
I don't get it. They all just seem like stuff you could do without the Switch, and I genuinely don't understand how they missed the point so much on what Jackbox does and what Jackbox achieves. It's so simple. We're all sat around on a couch drinking and having fun, and we're just like, rather than just chatting and drinking, let's have something to direct our attention at, and it's play Jackbox. I genuinely don't understand why they think people would want to get up and mine numbers out with a Joy-Con, and that's the bingo number.
To play bingo.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Seriously, who even wants to play bingo? Like, they're targeting this at families with children. What child enjoys sitting around playing bingo?
Especially considering the whole reason to play bingo is to, like, win. Right? It's like,
win money. It's gambling.
The fun of bingo is like, or like, you know, I don't know if this was like a thing when you were a kid, but like my school used to have a bingo night for a fundraiser, and you could like win little toys and stuff. Like that was the reason you went, right? Is I want to pack a Pokemon card. It's not I want to fucking play bingo, right? Like, okay. So Steve, you're not alone, because the game has moved into the playtesting, round at some point in the last, well, I guess we don't know. There's no timeline established here, but it's moved into playtesting, and it's just the response has been really, really, truly negative. Like you said, the target audience was families and children, and they allegedly found the games boring. Many of the playtesters didn't even want to finish entire rounds before they were ready to render a verdict that it wasn't fun.
Musical chairs with random music that's not popular coming from the Switch, I'm sure was an absolute blast. Like, why would you play that rather than just have someone press the button on the stereo?
Because it's on Nintendo Switch, Steve. Come on. What, you could just play with blocks. Why would you play Minecraft?
You could even do something more fun where it's like, remember that hot potato game you used to play as a kid?
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's like chucking the Joy-Con around till like buzzes or something.
Sure.
Like, they could have actually done something that utilized the system a little bit more than just musical chairs or bingo.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
I think that's fair to say. So the other bit here was apparently the main mode of the game is called Team Battle Mode, where you have at least 2 teams of players that get put against each other in a bunch of these mini games, and it's like Horse is there and he's hosting it, and it has like the Jackbox thing where it's like he's like very involved and gives color commentary and all that kind of stuff. And apparently during the localization process, some of the sources that Imran talked to started calling the game horse shit. So people not liking this game, right? Very clearly not connecting with folks. How
did this make it all the way to localization? Like, they got through so many stages to the point where we're finishing this up by just localizing it, and nobody's liked it, but we just pressed on anyway.
So there is some color to that. Imran points out in the article that this is like not uncommon. Many games make it to testing and then they test poorly, and they either get shelved or they get, they try to address the issues and, and then test it again and, kind of iterate. And it's definitely something that happens quite a bit, and it's just not something that we're usually privy to. But the reason that this, I think, is getting attention is because he wrote specifically, it happens far more often than people know, and under normal circumstances, this is likely what would have happened and no one would have been the wiser. But no one expected everybody's 1-2 switch to test quite as badly as it did. So it's like a real surprise, I think, that this game is just not connecting with people to them. And to your point, Steve, they have gotten pretty far along on every other aspect of this thing, allegedly. Apparently, there are a number of employees at Nintendo who are like higher ups who had been trying to like raise the alarm that this game was not good, and that if it did come out at full price as is, it would like be damaging to Nintendo's reputation for delivering like great software. But Nintendo, basically assuming that whatever work needed to be done is doable, has already moved forward to like print out cover art, and apparently there are a number of empty boxes made, printed, sitting,
oh my God,
waiting for a disc that doesn't exist yet because the game has no release date.
Like, I know in his article he said that some sources suggested that they just put it on Switch Online. Like, I feel like that's the only possible solution if they want to release this game in the current state.
Yeah, the thought process is that the quality doesn't matter if it's not, if it's free, right? Like
yeah, exactly. No one's paying for it, so who cares?
But it almost sounds like that would backfire, and everybody would be like, "No, don't buy Switch Online. All they got is this terrible game here." But
yeah, and it's like, I don't know, like there is the Mario Kart and the Animal Crossing stuff, which is all great. So like, hopefully the argument there is like, it's free. If you don't like it, that's fine. Like, who cares? But like, yeah, I don't think there's like a good. I don't think there's a good way to put out something that people are describing as just being like boring, and just like,
Or horse shit.
yeah, just not worth playing.
Literally.
That's a tough place to be. And apparently there are a lot of executives that are like, no, we need to put this out as a $60 product. So, let's hope not.
This is mad. Like, I genuinely don't understand it to begin with, because like 1-2-Switch, yeah, it sold a decent amount, right? 3.4 million copies.
There was no other games out though.
But yeah, I think that's genuinely the only reason it sold so well, because it was a launch title and there was nothing else to play. But it sucked. Like, I remember going into used game stores a couple of weeks after launch, and this was the only game in there. Like, everyone had bought this game, and they were just like, sold it, kept Breath of the Wild, had played 1-2-Switch for like 2 minutes, did the hot dog eating thing, and then that was just like, oh great, I felt some ice cubes in my Joy-Con. I can bin that off now. And I don't understand why they thought this idea was so compelling. I really don't. Jackbox, seemingly, is the only company who has cracked this party game on smartphones thing. Sony
At
tried
least
it with the well, yeah, but Sony tried it with the PlayLink system. Absolute car crash, disaster at launch. It seems like Nintendo's trying it. I don't really understand from the article what the phone offers. Like, it seems like a lot of these games could be done without smartphones. Anyway, like, what do I need a smartphone to play musical chairs for?
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't know. That gets murky to me because, like, why do you need Drawful then, right? We could all just draw pictures and guess things, right? Like, there comes.
Oh yeah, I get that, but like, what is the smartphone adding that I couldn't play that game with just Joy-Cons? Like, I don't.
No,
I
I
don't
think you
understand
could.
how that plays.
My understanding is that the smartphone thing is for the lobby, in the way that it works in
Right,
Jackbox, where like I could like if
So then it's just picking a person. I put my name in. It's just like, you're up next, Pete, and like I pick teams and things. That's pretty cool. I mean, I like the smartphone thing. Or like tablet or whatever you want to play it on. I love Jackbox games. I buy every pack that comes out. We did Jackbox Party Pack 8 on our New Year's stream. I think they're fantastic. I don't understand why they're the only company that has done it well. I've not played another game with a cell phone that has worked as well. Like, that does that same system.
I think they just have it. I think it's one of those things where like there are other ones and like they've had varying degrees of success, but like Jackbox has brand recognition at this point. You know what Jackbox is. You know it's good. You know it's funny. You know it's fun. It's an easy value prop.
My only guess with this is there are people within Nintendo who think that 1-2-Switch did well because it was an interesting piece of software that utilizes their technology in some way, And since 1-2-Switch, Nintendo, outside of like Labo, hasn't really done anything that uses like the Joy-Con technology in a way. And so maybe they're looking at it as like, we've made this big investment.
And I think that was super interesting.
Oh yeah, the Ring-Con. Yeah, that too. But I think they're looking at it as like, we made this huge investment in this stuff. We're not utilizing it. Let's put out something that does and show people like, I don't know, you can play games in different ways. And then I did pull up like the recent like financial report, and one of their comments here was like, with the rising demand for entertainment among people around the world, the market environment that surrounds the company group is not only witnessing an increasingly diverse variety of entertainment associated with advances in technology, but is also experiencing an increase in the number of companies entering the games industry, leading to even fiercer competition. And this is under their issues to be addressed section on that. And all I can think is like, maybe they want to keep the Switch looking as like just something unique compared to the other things that are popping up. A lot of handhelds that are, like the Steam Deck, just showing that what you can do with power and stuff. And they're like, oh, but we still have these unique ways to do
But
things.
they're still one of the three major platform holders. The Steam Deck's, not a real consumer product, I don't think, in the same way that the Switch is. It never will be. It's an enthusiast product. And I think if they feel they've got to do this kind of thing in order to keep the Switch seemingly fresh, like, I don't understand that, because the Switch is
Yeah.
succeeded because it's this cool hybrid console that has Mario and Zelda and all of the titles that you want on there. And I think the biggest thing that people are asking for is more power, not
Mhm.
more weird
More
party
gimmicks.
games that I can only play on Switch. Because yeah, I can play Jackbox on like an Amazon Fire Stick. It's basically a web browser. Like you don't really need the software. It's all like powered by the cloud.
So if I can jump in here, I don't think it's what y'all are describing as much as like them wanting to speak to the different segments of audience that they envision them having, right? Like, I don't think it's as much like, how do we keep Switch fresh? How do we keep it competitive, as much as it is like, okay, we have this user base, right, of over 100 million Switches in the wild, right? One of the best selling consoles. And you look at what Nintendo's success was in the Wii generation, and it was stuff like this, right? It was Wii Sports. It was,
We play, we music.
Wii Fit, like all of these things that existed to sell to the, we'll call the quote unquote non-traditional gamer, right?
It was the touch generations in Europe, is what they call
Sure,
it.
right? And I think it's pretty clear that 1-2 Switch is chasing that lineage, of that type
Do you
of
know,
game.
I guess so, maybe. It feels like they've kind of missed who they should market the game to as well. Like Imran mentioned families, and like they wanted this game to work for families. Like maybe, like I do play Jackbox with my family, but we're all adults. Like we're playing it as adults and we're having fun. I don't think it's really a game that is targeted at kids. Like I
The
don't.
point being, though, is like, take kids out of it, right? It's non-traditional gamers. It's the type of gamer that plays Wii Sports and doesn't play Legend of
Yeah.
Zelda. It's the type of gamer who bought Switches in
You can
droves
get mum
to
and
play.
dad involved, maybe, yeah. Like,
Yeah, but
mum and dad might not usually play games, and you can then get them involved on when you go around and see them and be like, well, play this weird game with me. We could play some musical chairs or
Sure.
play some bingo or whatever.
and I also think that, again, like, they are, and this is my speculation, right? But I imagine that they look at that type of gamer to be in a similar bin as the type of gamer who bought a Switch to play Animal Crossing and maybe doesn't own any other games.
Yeah. I was literally going to say, like, I think they're probably trying to shift in a way that kind of leans toward the Animal Crossing audience that
I don't
they
even think
picked
it's
up.
a shift. I think it's just more like,
Yeah.
we need to serve this audience too.
Yeah,
I just don't think that's the same Venn diagram. People that play Jackbox and party games versus people that play Animal Crossing. I just don't think they overlap.
I also don't think that they understand the Animal Crossing audience. I think that game has always been kind of a weird one for them,
Yeah.
at least. Like,
And
as far as like who's playing Animal Crossing, what other types of games are they picking up? And I'm sure they have some data historically with like New Leaf, Wild World, especially probably those, and the games that were big during those times for them was like, I don't know, a lot of the stuff we're kind of seeing right now. The Wii Sports stuff.
And
So they're like, oh, maybe that'll work.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is like, I don't think it's a 1-to-1 audience, but there's definitely overlap between those type of players. I think like there is definitely, we talk about this all the time, right? Like there are, I think gaming, right, as a habit is very much a spectrum, and there's a big difference between quote unquote casual player who only plays mobile games versus casual player who owns a console and has one game on it and plays it all the time versus the person that buys 3 games a year versus the person that buys 10 versus the person that buys 100, right? Like there's a wide gap between those things. And like, I'm, quote unquote a core gamer, but I play Animal Crossing, right? So like, I'm a type of player, but there are tons of people that maybe play Animal Crossing and then maybe play like,
they play Pokemon.
Yeah, they play
I can tell you right now,
Pokemon,
they play a lot of Pokemon.
and maybe they play like The Sims on PC, or maybe they play,
a lot
like
of Stardew Valley, a lot
other
of
indie
Sims.
games, like things like that, right? And like they're not into necessarily like a big AAA open world third person action game, but they are interested in playing Jackbox with their friends on a Friday night. Like, that person exists, and
They like Hades a lot.
maybe so. It is horny.
Yeah.
Well, I
Did you
feel like that is just like gamer. It could be any gamer that also likes playing games with friends and has friends that aren't gamers. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
everyone is that, you know.
And I think
And-
that's where
and
Nintendo's confused. Yeah.
And like, I feel like the people that buy Jackbox is the gamer, the one that's excited about playing games and wants to play with their friends who aren't gamers, and they get them over and they're like, all right, try this, play this. It's easy. All you got to do is open.
It's like,
up
that's
this
my
website
point,
on your
though. This
phone
is the same
and
game
you draw
as that.
on it.
This is the same game as that. It's just poorly executed, right? Like, I think it's the same idea. It's that you know, Steve would buy this game and then take it and play it with people that aren't going to play it normally. Or, you know, like just for total sake of anecdotal example, right? My sister-in-law has a Switch and Animal Crossing and Legend of Zelda and no other games, right? Those are the two games that she has. She can't play Breath of the Wild because she thinks it's too hard. So Animal Crossing is the one game she's played on Switch. This is a game that I could get her to play, right? This is a game I could see her breaking out when she has people over, right? Like, and I that doesn't mean that that's the only type of person, but I think that's part of Nintendo's thought process here is like, this is a game that will appeal to the core gamer who wants to play multiplayer stuff with non-core gamers, and it appeals to every other more casual, more, you know, non-traditional, whatever, however you want to describe this person that isn't looking to buy God of War 2 later this year, but they still play video games, you know? Like, I think that's who this exists for. Whether or not it's attractive to that person, totally different conversation, right? But I think that's the same thing as the Switch Sports of it all, right? Is like Nintendo wanting to be like, how do we recapture that Wii audience that we had that didn't show up for Wii U, and we have similar numbers now on the Switch, but we're not selling that kind of software anymore, or at least not in major numbers, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the Jackbox Party Pack games, they live and die on the collection of mini games in them. And, like, some of them are better than others. Some of them, there's always, like, a couple of standouts in the pack. And then some games that you just say, okay, I could leave that. And it seems like, I guess this is probably more miss than hit. Maybe there is a standout good mini game in there, but it hasn't been reported on, and I don't know. I feel like they've got so many games that cater for this anyway. Like, you want to play a party game, play one of the 2 Mario Party games. You want to play games that people are familiar with. Well, there's Clubhouse games. Like, people know how to play bowling or chess or checkers or the tanks game or Mancala, and you can get destroyed by Chuy. Like, there's things that Nintendo is selling that caters to it. I don't know. I just yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe 1-2 Switch was mega popular and they continue to sell boatloads of it after launch, but it just doesn't seem like it to me. Like 3 million copies, it feels like that was mainly in the launch year, and then maybe like the odd 1 or 2. I've never seen it on a store shelf other than in a used game store.
Yeah, I don't know, buddy. I'm inclined to think that you're right. And this was a miscalculation in a number of ways, but I guess we'll see what happens. This could be we could never ever hear about this ever again, and maybe they just cut their losses. But I don't know. I think it's more likely than not we see it on the expansion.
You know what they should
pack.
put out
Maybe it
instead?
comes out as DLC.
Yeah. You know what they should put out instead?
What's that?
Advance Wars.
That would be nice.
You are correct.
I would love if they were just like, you know what? Let's just give them Advance Wars.
I feel like that really fits into that same player that they're trying to target, the one that doesn't really play games. That, you know, you could definitely just like
yeah, the tactical. Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! You're killing me. All right, we're gonna move into our main topic this week. Our talking point is all about Nintendo at the movies. We got the news this week that a new company named Nintendo Studios has been spotted in the copyright listings for the upcoming Super Mario animated movie. It is Nintendo Studios LLC. And there's also an M Brothers Productions LLC, which is apparently pretty common practice in film. There's an example given in oh shoot, I don't have the article in front of me. I'm gonna have to find that so I can give credit. We'll throw the link down there below. Apologies. That Marvel had done a similar thing in the early days. Like they had Incredible Films LLC for like the Incredible Hulk movie, right? So apparently that's pretty common practice. So this kind of adds weight to Nintendo's previous statements that they had plans to adapt more of their characters to movie or TV shows in the future. And there are actually two interesting kind of comments from Nintendo leadership that tie back to this. So there was an investor Q&A in November of 2021 where Miyamoto said that basically Nintendo would want to make more movies based on other franchises beyond Super Mario, and he felt that like people should be experiencing Nintendo and their franchises in a variety of ways outside of video games, right? Obviously, that extends to like the theme park and some of these other things that they've been working on, the Lego toys. Like we know that this has been an initiative of theirs for a long time, but I think getting this right like cements the idea that this is something that they're really committed to moving forward. And it also ties. Last thing I wanted to just add here, and then I'll throw it to you, Chuy. This also ties back to the quote from Furukawa, which, if you recall, this came out during the whole investor relations conversation we had a couple weeks ago. There was that whole some people would argue a misquote, mistranslation, but the whole section on Nintendo's concern about transitioning between generations. And one of the things that Furukawa said was that to help alleviate the risk, they're focusing on building long-term relationships with their customers that includes like the Nintendo account, but also leveraging their IP outside of gaming software to have people have that connection with it beyond the Nintendo Switch. Chuy, you want to get off the bench?
Yeah, so I don't recall exactly, but I do know like there was a big shift in Nintendo's business practices with Iwata, with the Blue Ocean strategy and that sort of thing. And I think just prior to that, this is like business jargon stuff, but the positioning in their marketing was like, we're positioning Nintendo as an entertainment company, not like a video game company. They're more like, we're going to do all things entertainment. And I think that was the attitude prior to that Blue Ocean strategy that happened. And now it seems to be going back in that direction. So I think that's just like the shift overall I've seen as far as like how they're operating and things. And obviously there's, plenty of evidence toward that with Nintendo World theme parks opening up, the Mario movie in the works. And, there was also like all those canceled shows, right? Like people found out about, Zelda. They're working on a show for that. And they're like, let's not make that.
The Star Fox puppet show that was in development at Netflix. And apparently all of those shows got canceled because people
the leakers
leaked it. Yeah. And Nintendo pulled out because they didn't want to work with companies that were going to leak information and things like that. So that's like a whole other thing, but very interesting. So what we wanted to kind of talk about here right now that we have this confirmation and it's not just a slide in an investor deck, we wanted to take a look back, right? Look at some of the other things that they've done in the past, because in the late 80s and 90s, there were certainly a number of Nintendo properties that made the jump. We have famously the Super Mario Brothers show. There's the Pokemon franchise, obviously. There's Captain N, the Game Master. I don't know if either of you have ever seen Captain N. Absolute bang, just an amazing cartoon. Terrible, but amazing. Amazing. We'll have to watch that. I want to do a watch along of some of these old shows. We should do that with the Discord.
Yeah, they're really difficult to do watch alongs online.
No, it's easy. It's easy. We'll do it on the Discord and we'll just live stream us watching so you can watch our reactions with it, Works perfectly. I've done it before. And then there was the Legend of Zelda TV series, and some of these are just classically bad. The Legend of, have you ever seen that one? Because it's also terrible. So in that, Link talks, And his catchphrase, because like him and Zelda have like a very like contentious kind of like there's sexual tension, but she's smart and he's dumb, and like his catchphrase is he goes, "Excuse me, princess."
I've seen
With that
I've seen clips of that. Yeah,
So bad. It's so
And-
bad.
and it
real.
looks
That's
so
a
much
real
like-
thing that exists.
it looks like that the Philips CDI level of animation.
It's a little better than
bad.
that. It's a little better than that, but it's still pretty bad. And Captain N is my favorite because it's literally just like this kid who's like he's like a gamer, and he gets like sucked into the world of his Nintendo.
It's like Captain
Classic.
Nintendo.
Captain
Is that
N.
what it
Classic.
means?
That's
Apparently in Australia it was called Captain Nintendo, so
There you go.
that's weird.
that makes a little bit more sense, honestly.
Yeah, and him and his dog get like sucked into the NES, and he has like an NES zapper as like a gun, and like he becomes friends with like Simon Belmont and Mega Man and Kid and
Why is Mega Man in this? Like
That is
Capcom's Mega Man?
yeah, it was one of the biggest games on the NES.
That's a
Wow,
weird
okay.
looking Mega Man too.
Castlevania also, right? Like not, you know,
Yeah. Apparently Mother Brain from Metroid's in it as well.
she's like the main villain, even though like Samus like isn't in it.
Love that.
It's really weird.
What I don't get is why they were all so bad, but the Pokemon stuff was actually pretty good.
First of
And,
all,
like the Pokemon anime really took off.
put some respect on Captain N's name, okay? Because Captain N is great. My favorite thing about Captain N, before we move on, is Mega Man in it. He says Mega, like just before random words, and he'll be like, Mega High! It's awful. It's truly awful. I love that. I love that show. I've watched every episode. It's abysmal.
Love it.
And then, of course, like on the movie side of things, right? Like, it's aside from the live action Super Mario Brothers movie, we have like it's mostly just, you know, like the Pokemon movies. There's like a Kirby movie that went along with Kirby Right Back at You, which was like a TV show based on Kirby that had like a made for TV movie. There was a Donkey Kong Country show. The Legend of the Crystal Coconut was like the film that like kicked that series off and stuff. So like they exist. They're few and far
And the
between.
Animal Crossing movie. Don't forget
That
it.
is true. Yeah, I've never seen that one because
So
it's
good.
never been dubbed.
I'm down a whole rabbit hole. Have you ever have you ever watched Ed, Ed and Eddie?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that voices Captain N is both Ed from Ed, Ed and Eddie. And he's also the voice of a character in Dragalia Lost. So like I guess he came
Amazing.
like full circle and like was still, you
Wow,
know,
he got called up to
stuff
the
for
big
Nintendo.
leagues. Captain N.
Listen. Looking through any voice actors' list of work is just incredible. They've done so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voice acting, probably the coolest job in the world. Gonna come out and say that right there.
For sure.
So, you know, I think it's safe to say many of these are a mixed bag. Some of them are like famously bad, right? And there's not a lot of like breadth between those two things. I don't think there's any that are just good, like removed from.
Except the Animal Crossing one. That one's
Sure,
great.
I'll take your word for it on
So
that
good.
one. I believe you. But I think it's interesting now, right? Because I think a lot of the missteps from that era, that generation, I think informed the era that we are familiar with, right? Because there was a Super Mario Brothers cereal, there was a comic book, there was all this shit, and then for years it was like none of that stuff. Like when we were kids, that stuff was pretty much just non-existent unless it was for Pokemon, right? And that only happened because of the Pokemon company, not because of Nintendo, you know? So like for a long time, Nintendo's been content, I think, to be out of that side of the game because they didn't.
Well, I think they just didn't trust anyone. It was like
Yeah,
we don't.
they had a lot of
look at How
failures.
much you butchered all of like? Can you? I can just imagine Miyamoto playing, like watching that movie and like playing Mario Hotel and just like crying a little bit at what they'd done to his character.
And And I
Yeah.
think you're probably right. Like it's probably a mixture of like them feeling embarrassed by those things and not wanting to take the risk and feeling like they don't have people in house that have that ability and not being able to find the right partners, or partnering with people and then backing out because they didn't like dealing with them. There's been a lot of missteps along the way, and like,
And it's a wildly different industry
yeah.
than video games, how it operates too. So
And I think it's important in a way that it wasn't when they were trying to do it before. Like, I think at that point they were trying to be like the first video game company to break into other spaces, and it was like a challenge for them. Whereas now it's like, not that it's like a 1-to-1, but like you can look at like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and like how there's been this now, okay, for years comic book movies sucked, and since like 2000 whatever, right, depending on where you want to put the line, right, like with like Spider-Man and X-Men and Batman and then the MCU, like we figured out how to make a comic book movie. We figured out how to take comics as wacky as they are and make them work on the big screen. And I feel like video games are in that like where comic stuff was in like the 90s, where it's like, oh, a lot of these are fucking shit, and a lot of them are like embarrassed to be made about video games, and they're just not tapping into it, right? They're not connecting with the source material the right way for whatever reason. And we've talked about it a lot, like where is that tipping point for games, right? Like we had the Sonic movies, seemingly very, they've been successful, mixed critically, I guess.
I still think Detective Pikachu is the best video.
That was great, right? Like that was a slam dunk. And and I think both of them, right? Like both that and Sonic, right? Like critically, but they're kids movies, and for kids movies, they did well, and they were likable, they were enjoyable. We've got The Last of Us around the corner, right? Like it feels like
the Uncharted movie just came out. That was kind of middle of the road.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we've really still had a slam dunk here.
No,
and
we
I
haven't.
think Nintendo is kind of poised to take it if they play their cards right, because their stories in their video games are trash. Like nobody cares about any of their stories. Like, Princess Peach has been kidnapped once again, and you've got to go save her from Bowser for the millionth time. Like, okay, great, but the worlds that they've built are phenomenal. Like the iconography, the characters, the things in them are just so iconic and so charming and so full of life that they could do so much with it. But I think the next one they should target is not Zelda. I would really love to see a Metroid movie. I just think it would be amazing. But I personally want that to be an adult movie. I don't want that to be an animated.
I think it would need to.
targeted
Like,
at
just
kids.
the imagery of Metroid has always been like so intense.
That's
and
why I don't
dark
think
and-
you do it next. I don't think you go from Illuminations making a Super Mario Brothers movie to like, we're making a Metroid movie and it's going to be serious and it's going to be that. Like, that feels like such a pivot, I feel like Zelda's the most obvious next choice because of what Zelda is as a
Even
franchise.
then, I'd
but-
love that to be like. I loved the concept of a live-action TV series for Netflix. I thought it was such a cool idea, and obviously that's not going to happen now, but it could happen on Amazon, for example, and
Paramount
I-
Plus, maybe, and Chewie gets his prediction
Yeah.
point.
There we go.
maybe.
And I think that's honestly like Zelda. I think is a good in betweener to lead into something like Metroid, where they're like, all right, we can go a little bit heavier with these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah, maybe. I gotta say, I'm really disappointed that Star Fox show didn't come together.
Man.
Have you heard about that? It's like it was like a Robot Chicken-esque like puppet production.
Mhm.
I feel like that's just such a good idea.
Maybe you'll get it with Illumination. Who knows?
Maybe I don't know. Don't think it'll be as good, but
No.
No, probably not.
and, like I don't know. I don't necessarily mean to throw shade at Illumination. I feel like it's cool to shit on them because everyone's annoyed by the Minions now. But like Despicable Me, like as a movie removed from the franchise, like it's a good movie. Like that is a good movie. They're capable of making good family films. So I mean that's what we're trying to do here. So I don't know. But my question is, do you think they will do live action stuff? Because I don't know.
I hope so.
I wouldn't
really
be surprised
hope
if they
so.
committed to animation.
like maybe to begin with, but I just feel like some of their games are just they're just ripe for live action. They really are. And I'm looking through Illumination stuff, right? They've had some absolute hits. Despicable Me and Despicable Me 2 are like solid 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Secret Life of Pets, Sing 2. Like they've made some really great movies, but like animation I think is it can go so far, but and I think you could do a scary adult Metroid movie as animation. I just think it would be better if we saw Samus like alone. Like I'm thinking similar to like theme and setting of like Alien or Gravity, where it's like that sense of isolation around you, because that's the thing that Metroid gives you, is that like, oh, I'm alone on this planet, I'm all on my own and there's no one else here and I've got to figure this all out myself. And Gravity had that exact same setting and that exact same scenario, and I think the live action would be the only way I'd want to see them do that.
I don't think it gets made, honestly. Like
No,
I
it's
feel
a
like
shame.
I feel like the idea of the Metroid movie that you want makes a lot more sense as animation. Like I think if it was like a one-off, like hour-long, 45-minute long kind of special or something like that, and it's like really good detailed animation, no dialogue, like, or maybe very limited dialogue, and it's mostly just atmosphere and sound direction and stuff like that, like a good episode of Samurai Jack. I think that could whip. I think a series like that could whip, honestly.
Yeah, I think a TV series would be great. Like,
That's it. Never mind. That's the
overcoming
pitch.
challenges.
It's Jendi. You get Jendi Tarkovsky, who did Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, all those other shows, but Samurai Jack is the influence we're going for here. And you just take that format and just make it about Samus. Slam dunk.
Yeah.
10 out of 10
And
show.
I think the only thing I hold on to with that is that Metroid gets that T for teen rating, so hopefully they just like take the movies in that direction, at least go PG-13
Yeah.
with it.
I think
Well,
you
here
could
it
easily.
was
But
a
I think-
Peggy 16, so like I think you could go for like a mature audience on it.
Yeah, that's a
can't,
scary
though.
thing for the film industry, honestly.
you can't-
As soon as they go into the R direction with things, it's like it really cuts off the audience quite
Also,
a
just
bit.
Nintendo's not going to do that. Nintendo doesn't want an
Mhm.
R-rated movie with one of their characters.
I don't know what the ratings are, but here we have a 15, which is I think what it would target.
So we have, it goes G, which is anybody, PG, which is children.
Parental
Like,
guidance.
yeah, you should have a parent with you.
Basically the same as G.
Yeah, like you're not sending a kid to. Doesn't matter. PG-13
PG in the 90s though is like it's up there.
bigger deal. PG-13, which is teenager friendly, and then R, which is adults only.
No.
Okay,
No,
so we
that's
have a
true.
different one.
Yeah.
And 17 is the really, but like they don't make movies that have that rating, right? So
At least not ones that are released in
Right.
like big theaters.
In mainstream cinemas, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
So we have like a slightly different. We have U, which is universal, PG, 12A, which is you can watch it with an adult if you're 12 or under, and that was only it was 12, but they changed it to 12A specifically for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And I remember the whole
Oh.
news thing
That's
about
so
it.
weird.
Like so many kids wanted to see Spider-Man in the cinema that they were like, okay, we'll make it so your parent can take you. And you had to have like an adult with you. Then you have a 15, which is usually like a little bit more violence, a little bit, maybe like a little bit of sex.
you
and
couldn't
some,
bring a
like,
kid to that
gore.
though. Like if I wanted to go and take my kid who's
No, you cannot take a kid to a 15.
The
You
difference
have to
here
be
is like
15.
you can take
yeah,
your kid
you can
to, like,
take a
an R
kid.
movie.
There's no rule. They're like, yeah, whatever though. Like who cares?
If something's PG-13 or R, like you can take a kid there, but
Yeah.
NC-17 is specifically like the one that you
No,
can't.
Right, like-
15 or 18, you're not allowed to take any children in with you.
That's insane. That's
That's-
so crazy to me. Okay. What was Doctor Strange rated? The new one?
Yeah, what was Doctor Strange?
Because like there was a
'Cause
lot of
that's
kids.
what-
In the UK,
intense
hold on,
stuff.
let me have a look.
There was a lot of kids when I went to see.
I saw a bunch of kids at Venom too.
12A.
Let there be 12A.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the only one that's been above a 12A in the UK, the Marvel one, of recent memory is Deadpool. All the other ones
Yeah.
has been 12As. They
Yeah.
target 12A specifically, I presume. For
There's
the
only been a
number
couple
of people
superhero
that
movies
watch
that
it.
have been rated R. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Yes,
Bit
I mean,
a bit of Blade. That's always good.
oh my god, Blade rules. I hope the new Blade is rated R. That would be fucking awesome.
Apparently, Captain America was a 15 in the UK. First Avenger.
I guess because it shows war. There's like Nazis and stuff.
No idea.
I don't know. Whatever. Interesting. Anyway, yeah. So that's not happening, right? Like, I think any movie that Nintendo makes is gonna top out at PG-13. They're not gonna want
And
to.
that's fine. Like, I think you can do a PG-13 and still have it be like have a sense of tension. Like
Yeah.
some of the Marvel movies have like that sense of like tension and like, oh my god, edge of the seat kind of gripping. And I just think live action for it is just the way I would love it to go. Like, I'd love to see Samus on the big screen.
But then they're gonna make some famous blonde actress be her and give her like dialogue and stuff, and like that's where it gets weird because it's like
no, there wouldn't be any dialogue because who's she gonna talk to?
They're
and
not
she'd
gonna-
have a she'd
they're-
have a suit on anyway. And like maybe you do the TV series thing. I don't know.
I
And
love
each-
that
each
idea.
Episode can be like maybe each season can be like one of the bounties that she's
Yeah.
going on.
I don't know though. I don't know. Like I have a really hard time believing that they're gonna commit to a movie series or a film or a TV show series where they're like, yeah, we got Brie Larson, but she doesn't talk.
Yeah, it'd be great.
But they're not gonna do
No,
that.
she'd sign that contract in seconds. If it was
Probably.
an Animal Crossing movie,
would,
she'd be
yeah.
there like in an instant. She'd be like, "What? I get to meet Tom
I think
Nook in
that's
real
a
life?"
$1 million question: is when does the Animal Crossing movie come out? I wouldn't be surprised.
How
want
do you
a
make
sequel.
that?
Easy.
You should watch the first one. It's very like slice of life anime styled.
You just make it a little slice
it's
of life
a solid
story.
one.
You know?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I could see that. I thought we were still talking live action. I was like, how do you make a
No,
live
no.
action?
Oh, that one needs to be
Animal
animated.
Crossing?
Animated,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Well-
I thought that about both Sonic and Detective Pikachu. I was like, how are they going to make Detective Pikachu live action? But they pulled it off, and it looked great.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. I think there's some things that make more sense live action because it's just like if you're gonna make a Metroid movie with no dialogue, it's like you're gonna spend so much fucking money making like a high concept, big budget sci-fi movie with no dialogue. I just like that's not a thing that appeals to most mainstream audiences, right? Like,
I mean, that was Gravity, right?
yeah, but how successful
that
was
film.
Gravity?
$723 million.
Okay, and what was the budget?
And I think it also got an Oscar. So
I'm
probably
not.
several of them.
It's not a value judgment.
Budget of 80 million, so like a 10
That's pretty good.
Return.
That's a pretty good return.
Mhm.
Nintendo, I think, would be probably pretty happy with that. I don't know.
I'd be pretty happy with that. Yeah,
I don't know though.
that
It's
movie
like,
was great though. Like it was phenomenal.
the metrics for success are like, it's tough because it's like I don't know. That's a lot of money, but like Nintendo's gonna spend more than $80 million making and marketing a Metroid movie. You know?
Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think
depends
it's
how many characters are in it, right? Because this was cheap because it only had like 2 people in it, and one of them was only in it for like 5 minutes.
great
at the
point. If
beginning.
Brie Larson's the only actor in the whole movie,
That is-
then it's probably pretty affordable, right? Like,
They had to do some voiceover.
you know what you
And some
could do?
redone work, yeah.
You know what you could do though? You could have Brie Larson minor speaking, right? And you have the baby Metroid that follows her around as like that's the character that she can play off of.
Yeah.
No
Like,
conversations,
usually,
but-
usually the character that she plays off of, right, is the computer that she talks to.
Yeah. And you do that
Because
too,
you'll
but
go
how
and
much are you
speak
doing
to,
that,
like, you
right?
can do
Like
that.
how often is that happening? Like, probably not that much.
Mhm.
There you go. That's 2 people, right? So we get
I feel like you could find survivors and stuff. Like they take the atmosphere and the idea, and like maybe the bounty is that Samus is going to like, you know, wherever she works for, like to rescue the people off the station because there's been like a Metroid outbreak or something, and you make it scary as fuck. Like that's what I really want. It's just like sci-fi horror Metroid game, a movie. Like, I think it would be amazing. A Metroid game would be great like that as well, like a Dead Space Metroid. Oh my god.
Yeah. I think it would have to be more akin to Alien, though. Like, it would need to be
like the original
atmospheric
Alien.
horror. Yeah,
Yes.
like not shoot 'em up stuff, because just they're not gonna do that.
Not Aliens, Alien. Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't think they will. I want them to so bad, but I just feel like
That's the one I want the most. Like, as much as I like Zelda, I feel like it changes so often. It feels almost like they're so disjointed. I don't even know what that timeline looks like, right? And I've got like the Hyrule Historia book, and I don't know where we are. Where do you pick? Like,
I think
becomes
that's what makes
canon
it
for the
easier, though,
movies?
right? Is like you don't like it doesn't matter, right? Like you can just
you pick one. Yeah.
yeah. It's like because
It
it's
would
like
also, if they did that, they just wouldn't pick one that's already on the timeline at all.
Yeah,
They
just
would
do something new.
Be like, here's a new part of the timeline.
Yep.
With this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's an easy way to do it, right? Like, again, to take it back to the comic book thing, like that's like what the MCU is, right? Like it's rarely like a one-to-one retelling of an event, right? Like they have Captain America Civil War that's loosely inspired by the comic Civil War, but if you watched that movie and then went and read that comic, you'd be like, these are totally fucking different things, right? Like yeah, like Iron Man and Captain America both have a team of heroes and they fight, and there's the political stuff going on. Aside from that, all the details are different, right? Like, you know.
And I think Zelda, for me, like runs into the same problem with like Metroid, where I would rather just not have Link be a speaking character.
I'd be like, how do you do that, right? I don't think there's any way to do that.
I would rather make them have him sign, if anything.
That'd be interesting.
Just sign language or something.
That would be
like I would love.
It takes place in the Quiet Place universe, and none of them can talk because all of the Guardians will hear them.
That's the thing, though. You know that's not going to happen, right? Like Mario is Chris Pratt. It's going to be something like that. Like Link is going to be like, I don't know.
It's going to be what's his face again. The kid who's
Danny
in
DeVito
Spider-Man.
to play Link.
Danny DeVito. Wait, you just say the kid who plays you? It's Tom Holland. Tom Holland
Yeah,
is
Tom
Link.
Holland. It's always Tom Holland.
I mean,
Is he gonna
yeah.
be is he gonna be English Tom Holland though? No American accent.
No,
'Cause
American.
I feel
No,
like
he's not going to
Link
speak in
has
this
an
one.
English
Okay,
accent.
he's not speaking.
Link. I mean, Zelda
he's
doesn't
just
have.
playing him, and
Zelda doesn't have a British.
Zelda's
accent.
British.
She's
Zelda's
posh. Yeah,
British.
she does have that kind of like.
She's like, Link, please go careful out there.
So you want them to all be Cockney posh? They're gonna get the
like they're in Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, get the Jeremy.
Love it.
That's the vibe I'm getting, right? And Xenoblade's ready for a movie as well, surely. Like that's gotta come
no
at some point.
fucking way. Maybe
You think we get a Xeno movie?
No.
It would work.
Maybe
It
a
would.
show. I could see a show for Xenoblade. There's no way you can boil down how fucking wacky that shit is into a movie. No way.
You just take the like extracts of it, right? It's the basis of it,
Right,
like they
Steve.
did
And
with
what you're
Detective
describing
Pikachu.
is a recipe for a bad movie. That's how you get every bad adaptation ever. Is like we just take the core stuff and we boil away all the special stuff and
Do you remember the Doom movie where it had like the first person moments? Do you remember that one?
Oh my god, the one with the rock.
That was my favorite part. I was like, this is so dumb, and I love that. Like,
so bad.
thank you. You know what would be a great movie, though? A Luigi's Mansion movie.
Yes,
Luigi's Mansion would
Easily
be really good.
so
yeah.
fun.
Yes. We need a Luigi's Mansion spin-off with Charlie Day. That's the next movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
would just be that'd just be all around fun. I think they
in.
would nail that.
I'm in.
I'd be up for like a WarioWare movie as well, like where it's him trying to like take over the universe or take over the world or whatever with like his bad plans that never work out well for him, and like he's just getting foiled all the time by whoever else in the world.
That's easily an episodic cartoon show.
Yes, that absolutely
So
could be an
easy.
episodic cartoon. Like every episode, he's coming up with like a new dastardly plan that just is not going to
That's
work
Pinky
out.
in the brain right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's my last pitch is I think I would love to see them make a series of animated shorts of Kirby and use those as the intro to every one of the Nintendo movies. You know how like Pixar always does their
adorable.
little shorts? Just have little shorts about Kirby. Just like going off and
That would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
works.
well, see now I can see in my mind because you just mentioned that, right? I want it in the style of the Zelda game, the Zelda intro on that I can't remember the name of it. It's slipped my mind. Link's Awakening, the
There you
like
go.
anime intro.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
I want a cartoon in that style. Like I could 100% see that. And it doesn't need to be Link making any noise or speaking.
Yeah, if it's like a short like that, I think that works. It's like when you're trying to be like, how do we make a full-length feature film in which the main character does not talk? That's an uphill battle. And Nintendo has created exclusively silent protagonists. So we'll see what happens, but I think they're all
Until
going to
you can play as Zelda in Breath of the Wild 2, and then she's spoken. So
You've really got a lot of wishful thinking on your part, Steve, and I respect that. Always the optimist.
My dream. I just
Yeah.
want to play Zelda.
Keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. I never say never. Could happen one day, but I don't think we're getting it in Breath of the Wild 2. Unless there's a hard pivot in that game immediately, and it's like, oh, Link's frozen. You're Zelda. I don't think it's going down that way. That's my 2 cents, though.
what about Link's dead? He's gone forever. He's never coming back.
No,
Ever.
that won't happen.
This is it now.
Nope, never gonna happen. You think Nintendo's gonna just shoot the golden goose? They've made 60 to 100 Mario games.
Mario's gone now. Wario's taken over.
I'm still with Steve, though. I think they could pull off a silent protagonist Samus Metroid movie.
I agree. It's more do they want to?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Film already relies too much on dialogue. We can hear less of people and just see things happen. Use some of the other stuff going on.
Yeah, but put up cards like they did in Silent Movie Days to tell me what they're going to say rather than have them speak it.
I wouldn't mind. But yeah, I mean, they could build a really great atmosphere with it.
Nintendo's going back to the pre-talkie days.
Yeah, why not? They're already living in them now.
Fair enough, boys.
They predate them.
Okay, you're right. You know what? You're right. When you're right, you're right.
Last thing before we close out, like, I can't believe it, none of us mentioned it. Either a Smash Bros movie where it's like a metaverse thing, or a Fire Emblem movie. It has to happen at some point. Like,
Fire Emblem movie makes a lot of sense.
Would work. I think the Smash movie has to happen after they've done all the other characters' movies.
Yeah, that's the
film
MCU Avengers, right? That's where they all come together.
You can't.
It's
It's
the Smash Brothers universe, and they're all fighting the big hand.
There's no way.
Yes.
There's no way that will be good. Please don't do that.
But they're toys to life, right? That's the story of
Smash, right? But then what you're telling me is we're gonna build this entire elaborate multiple series of Nintendo movies, and the culmination is gonna be all those were fake. They're toys. Boom! Like, I don't know. That sounds
and then there's a big
awful.
hand that's like been controlling everything.
You'd have to rewrite it. And they're getting plucked out of their universes. I don't know.
It's got to happen. I mean, Pete,
That's
come
genius.
on.
Love
What's
that.
this world got left? Like 60 years, maybe? Make it happen.
You know what, Chuy? You're right. You're right. How many more years we got left? I want a Smash Brothers movie. Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us here at another episode of Nintendo Noise. If you want to write in and let us know what Nintendo franchises you want to see come to the big screen or the small screen or the medium screen. There's a lot of screens these days. Write in and let us know. There's a bunch of ways you can do that. Head over to flipscreen.games, join the Discord, write into us at questions@flipscreen.games, follow us on social media, however you choose to keep up. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for being a part of the Flipscreen Games community, and we thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Nintendo Noise. For the crew, I've been Pete, he's been Chuy, he's been Steve. We'll see you next week.